Hey, Daily Dosers, it is good to be with you. Pastor Hans here. If you take a minute before we dive in to share this post, to like it, I'd be so grateful as we try and get the word out. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe and hit the button so you can get some notifications as well. Hey, I want to talk to you about water. Around here in Minnesota, we have more than enough water. We spend all kinds of time on the weekends out on the lake, pulling our kids, dragging them around on the lake on our inner tube. We water our lawns. We have water fights in our yard. We have more than enough water. And that's why I was thinking the other day when I was taking a look at a passage that talked about Jesus. And it talked about how Jesus is this one who gives living water. I was curious if we fully can grasp what that passage is all about, living in this land of 10,000 lakes. Because here's what I know, those authors who were writing this passage, they were writing it in a very different location. You see, the authors that talked about Jesus as living water were writing from the desert. I remember I had the privilege of being able to visit the Holy Land. And while we were there, we visited a spring where this waterfall and this little oasis exists in the middle of the desert. It's called the En-Gedi. And there's this just small little area where there is vegetation that grows. And I was thinking about how the language of living water is used so often to describe what Jesus gives to us. Because here's what I know about our lives. Sometimes it feels as though we are desert people. I don't know about you, but sometimes during this COVID journey, I felt like I've been out in the wilderness. I've been out on a journey. I know our country in the midst of all the racial unrest. Sometimes it feels for some of us like we're out in the wilderness. We're out in the desert. If you've got loved ones who are hurting these days, maybe they're wrestling with cancer, or maybe you've got tensions in your family, maybe with your spouse, you know what it's like to wander in the wilderness. And it's in the midst of that sort of desert scene that the authors of the Bible, they talk about Jesus as the living water. You see, folks, we have a God who wants to be that living water for you and for me. And I sometimes think that we lose the significance of what those original authors were talking about. Living water is that thing that gives us life. It's a matter of life and death. It's living water that nourishes us, that when we are at our wits' end, when we're ready to give up, when we feel like the weight of the world is riding on our shoulders and we don't have the strength to go on. You see, that's what the living water was all about. It's the living water that people like you and people like me need. And so, folks, remember this. If you remember nothing else today, remember that as you navigate the deserts, the wilderness of your life, that you have a God who's right there with you, a God who is here living your living water. Folks, have a good night.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name, power in your name. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance, 'cause I'm standing in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I'm standing in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when